Okay, we're going to be looking a bit at soldering here now. First we have some insulated wire that you can see over here. And we're wanting to solder this insulated wire onto these alligator clips, which themselves are insulated. Okay, first thing is to strip the wire, strip the end of the wire off. Now you can use some of these commercial type of wire strippers. Fairly simple, you can just find the right sized wire, click it into place, and then strip. If it's the wrong size, just fit it into a smaller gap, a smaller hole, strip, and the wire comes off really easy like that. Now if you haven't got those available and you want to do something else, you can do it just using some normal sharp knife. So I'll just sever the end off there with the side cutters so you can see what I mean. So I've got just a sharp sort of X-Acto blade type craft knife here. Just put it straight on the ground, keep your fingers well away, and just roll it backwards and forwards like that, not pressing too hard, just enough so you cut the insulation without cutting the wire in underneath, and then pull the end out, and there's your wire stripped, ready to go. Now, little strands can be annoying. When you strip it, just give it a little quick roll like this to try and hold it together so it doesn't spread when you're soldering. Now, when you want to solder connections, it's a good idea to tin the wire, which means it's a good idea to put a bit of solder on each of the pieces and then simply heat the two pieces covered in solder, heat them together. Now, we've stripped that wire. I'm going to show you how to take these things, take the insulation off the alligator clips. You can try and pull pretty hard here, but the reality is it's a bit hard to do that. So one of the techniques that I've used is just to use, see you, Ben? It's just to use a something to widen the jaws up, something like that, the end of a knife. Then once the jaws are held open like this, you can just easily pull the insulation off. Press in a bit further, and you've released the alligator clip. Now, let's tin this wire. We'll tin both of these two surfaces, and I'll show you how to do that. Now, with soldering, we're going to use a sort of a narrow nose soldering iron like this. You can see that the blade on top of it, or the blade's a bit sort of dull in colour. Wipe it on top of the sponge. You'll have a sponge on your soldering iron. When you wipe it on the sponge, you'll find that the solder will get nice and shiny and bright. So the oxide's removed. See, it's shiny and brighter there now. Keep it that way because we want to be able to use that. Now I'm going to use some soft solder here. When you're doing your soldering, just keep that blade on the soldering iron nice and clean. We want to draw the heat. So put your soldering, your item that you're going to solder over across the top. So it's sitting like a cross, like that, right across the top. And then place the solder on one side of the item that you want to heat up, and the heat on the other. So the heat will draw the solder through. You see how it's nice and shiny there? And once you've done that, the tip is tinned, which means it has some soft solder on it. You have to be fairly reasonably quick, but take your time in the sense that make sure that the solder melts. Don't rush the soldering. The biggest mistakes that beginning solderers do is they try and remove the solder before it's actually completed its work. So it needs to heat up. You need to see the solder go nice and soft, and then you need to see it go shiny, and a bit of steam will come off, and it's ready to join. Now, we're going to do the same thing on this alligator clip, but because it gets quite hot, because we've got to heat it up to over 100 degrees, then we need to try and hold it with something. So I'm just going to use the other side of the insulation, push it in there like that, so it won't burn my fingers as I am soldering this up. So I'm going to hold it like that with my fingers. Now the next thing is to heat. Now I've bent the solder so it's sitting up, so I don't have to hold it in position. That's because I've got it sitting on the end of this nice big roll. If you don't, you might have to use a vise or position it so that you can hold the solder in place, and it's fairly flexible. You can bend it, and then it's time to heat up. Now just like before, I'm going to clean my soldering iron, because whenever I clean the oxides off the soldering iron, it heats better. I'm going to heat the bottom, and I'm going to place the solder on top. Now it's going to take a little while, so the idea is just be patient here. Best thing you can do is just wait. Now the solder's starting to melt, but it's still bubbling. It's not actually flowing over the surface, which usually means that the surface that's supposed to be joining to has not yet heated properly. Now the worst thing you can do now is let that stay there as it is. You need to keep heating until the solder starts to flow. Keep heating it. It can take a little while, but you'll notice when it happens, you'll see the solder start to flow over the surface and it won't sit up like a little bubble. Keep heating. It's not there yet. It's not flowing. Still not flowing. You'll know when it starts to flow and you can draw the heat along. Yeah, that's starting to look like it now. I can feel it hot on my fingers as well. Okay, that's made a nice joint and you can move it along. Just using the heat of the soldering iron. I'll try and lift it up a little bit so you can see. It takes a while, don't rush it. Okay, so there it is there. Don't know if you can focus on that or not, may not be able to. Careful where you put your soldering iron when you do this. See if I can hit the focus button. Not quite, you can't quite see it. Oh, there it is, almost. Okay, so it should have flowed in there rather than sitting up with a big lump, look like a droplet of water. Okay, all right, now let's put on this wire that we've just tinned. Should be a fairly simple matter now. Now here's something that you need to be able to do. You almost need 3 hands. Got to hold the solder. I've got plenty of solder going on in here now. I'll clean up my soldering iron once again on the sponge. A couple of dabs on the sponge and it cleans. Make sure your sponge is nice and moist so the tip is shiny, and I'm going to heat the bottom surface and I'm going to hold my 2 items that I want to solder together, one on top of the other, but not in direct contact. Now, I don't know if you can see now, but the solder is starting to heat up. It's going soft and I'm holding the 2 together, and because both surfaces have been tinned, there's no need to add more solder and they'll just join nicely together. And when I'm done, I just lift it up away from the heat, blow on it a couple of times and it'll solidify. We have a nice soldered joint. Like that. Try and get a better focus for you. Put this soldering out of the way. Be careful of the soldering irons. They do burn. They are burny. Okay. So let's see if I can move that and get you a better focus for what I'm doing. Not quite. It's a shame. Okay. Here it is. Okay. All right, so that's the solder. Now to replace it, it'll still be quite hot, so be careful when you touch it. You might want to just pull that out. Same process to put this back in. Oh, you might want to make sure that you thread, when you're doing alligator clips, make sure you thread the clip in from the other end. Because if you solder the end on and you've got to replace it, it's a pain in the neck. You've got to unsolder your joint, put on your insulation cap, and then resolder it again. So here we go. So ready? Just push it back onto your holding device, which in this case is the knife that I've used. Push it up, release, and done, like that. There's your clip soldered. Now, you should be able to test. When you do both clips, or one clip test, grab yourself a multimeter, like this. Make sure it's plugged in the correct manner. So with the red lead or the positive lead sitting on the volt amps, milliamp section here. And your negative lead on the comms port. Turn the setting around to that little dial indicator there, which looks like it's got like a little radio signal emitting, and that will be continuity test. So then with the 2 probes, when you place the 2 probes together, you should when you turn the power on, you should hear like a chirping sound. That means that there's current. This is a closed circuit, current is flowing through, and we know the circuit's open. So if I wanted to test the quality of my soldered joint, hold the 2 ends up of the same wire together, hold one on one soldered on the other, one probe on, and then touch, and you can hear that both of those joints mean this is a continuous joint all the way from, or flow, all the way from where I'm touching the probe on my left hand to where I'm touching on the right hand. Test that and make sure that your joints are successful. Okay. Be sure when you're doing your soldering to wear safety glasses, because solder can flick up and it's quite hot, hits you in the eye, it does hurt. When you're doing your cleaning your soldering brush, or soldering iron I should say, over here. Just clean it, roll it backwards and forwards like that. Get rid of the solder. And you'll see it'll go nice and shiny. See that? Nice and shiny, and that's how you want to solder in that condition. You leave it go for a while, you'll see it starts to go dull. That's oxides forming on the outside. The oxides will stop the heat transfer. Metal oxides are the primary ingredients for ceramics, and ceramics are great insulators. So make sure that you clean up your soldering iron. And they're very good practice when you're not using your soldering iron. Put it back inside the holder to avoid pain. Now I've had the setting there on about 3/4 of the way through. If you're using or soldering larger areas, you may even want to go a bit hotter. Okay, small things don't require quite that much heat. All right, there you go.